Okay, so it's good to see everyone. We're on this page 165 of the PDF from Koren, and Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam shekidshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu la'asok b'divrei Torah.
Amen.
So we're talking about what we can allow non-Jews to do for us and what we can do for non-Jews. And the Mishnah had left off talking about circumcision, whether a Gentile can perform a circumcision for a Jew, or whether a Jew can perform a circumcision on a Gentile. Okay, so we left off at this S with slightly telling us that we're going to veer off into a different direction momentarily. No, not momentarily, for a couple of paragraphs, and we'll get back to the topic. It was stated that, according to the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda, circumcision must be performed for the sake of fulfilling a mitzvah, whereas Rabbi Yossi holds that no particular intention is necessary. In other words, Rabbi Yehuda thinks that a Jew can only perform a circumcision for the sake of the mitzvah of circumcision. So you can't just perform a circumcision for the sake of a circumcision. So in other words, that Yehuda is saying the only circumcision the Jews are allowed to do are on Jews for the sake of fulfilling the mitzvah of entering this 8-day-old child into the covenant. Whereas Yossi says, no, you don't need that intention. So the Gemara analyzes these opinions. Rav Chisda said, what's the reasoning of Rabbi Yehuda? Like, why does he say Jews can perform circumcisions only for the sake of the bris? As it is written in Exodus chapter 12, and when a stranger shall sojourn with thee, and will keep the Passover to the Lord, let all his males be circumcised. So, in other words, chapter 12 of Exodus is a lengthy chapter describing the first Passover in Egypt, getting the lamb, slaughtering it, putting the blood on the doorpost, being saved from the death of the firstborn, and then the people eating the meal, eating that lamb quickly. And if you have a stranger, that is a non-Israelite, with you at that meal, the only way that non-Israelite can be there if the non-Israelite is circumcised. And so the idea here is, to the Lord, let all his males be circumcised. It can be inferred from the verse that the males must be circumcised to the Lord. That is, for the sake of fulfilling God's will. In other words, not only do non-Israelites who want to participate in the Seder must be circumcised, they have to be converts. That their circumcision was in the name of God. The Gemara asks, and what is the reasoning of Rabbi Yossi? So in other words, Yossi is the one who said that it doesn't matter if it's for the sake of the mitzvah. It's written, he must be circumcised. Genesis chapter 17, himol yimol. The use of the doubled verb teaches that circumcision may be performed by anyone. So there are two separate verses, one in Genesis, one in Exodus. The one in Exodus seems to imply that circumcision is to the Lord. The one in Genesis, he must be circumcised. Just circumcised. There's no to the Lord in that verse. So that's why Yossi is learning his opinion from Genesis, and Yehuda is learning his opinion from the verse in Exodus.
Do you know the context of the Genesis verse?
So the Genesis 17 is about the commandment to circumcise all males.
Okay.
So you would think that context in Genesis would also be about fulfilling the mitzvah, but because the verse itself doesn't say to the Lord, that's why Yossi is learning his opinion from that. So now the Gemara is going to question this. the Gemara asks, and according to the other sage, that is Rabbi Yosei, isn't it written to the Lord, let all his males be circumcised? Like, in other words, what does Yosei do with the verse in Exodus, which indicates that circumcision must be performed for the sake of fulfilling God's will? In other words, both rabbis have the Torah in front of them. Why is it that Yehuda is focusing on Exodus and Yosei focusing on Genesis? Shouldn't Yosei be considering the Exodus verse 2 about to the Lord? The Gemara answers that is written with regard to Passover. According to Rabbi Yosei, the phrase to the Lord is referring to the previous mention of the Paschal offering rather than circumcision. Accordingly, the verse should be read, will keep Passover to the Lord. So in other words, this verse, and when a stranger shall sojourn with thee and will keep the Passover to the Lord, let all his males be circumcised. So Passover is to the Lord, not circumcision to the Lord, right? So that's how Yosei deals with that verse in Exodus to still allow then circumcision not having to be specifically to the Lord. Accordingly, the verse, yes.
I'm sorry. Is the quote from is the Genesis imperative one of the 613 commandments?
Yes, it's in
That's where
fact
it comes from.
it's the second of the 613 to appear in the Torah. The first one is to be fruitful and multiply. The second one is to circumcise all male children at 8 days.
So how can Yehuda ignore that?
So, okay, we're getting to Yehuda in a second. Accordingly, the verse should be right, we'll keep the Passover. The Gemara asks, and according to the other sage, Rabbi Yehuda, isn't it also written he must be circumcised? In other words, indicating that circumcision may be performed by anyone. So, in other words, if we understand the Genesis to be not about to the Lord, how does Yehuda who was deriving his opinion from Exodus, what does he do with the Genesis verse, which could imply that circumcision could be by anyone? The Gemara answers, the Torah spoke in the language of people, that is, the doubled verb is the usual style of the Torah, which does not serve to teach a novel halacha. So Yehuda would answer, I'm not learning halacha from this. The himol yimol, the doubling of the Hebrew there, that's just regular. So it's not coming to teach me something specific. Whereas Yosei says it is teaching something specific. Okay, so yes, Michael?
But the phrase Pesach Ladonai appears as a phrase itself several times.
So just a second.
The comma after
the
Lord.
Right, so 1 second here. So the verse is not completely there in the Hebrew. It's only in the English they have the whole verse. So let me get the Torah out and Exodus 12. V'chi agur itcha ger v'asa pesach ladonai himolo kol zechar. So if there's a stranger dwelling with you, a resident alien, and he does Pesach to God, then he and all the males with him should be circumcised.
Yeah. But the phrase Pesach Ladonai
Yes.
appears as a phrase several times.
Yes.
In the Torah.
Yes.
So it seems to me you'd put the comma after.
And it is with the trope, which is the punctuation marks. It is Pesach Ladonai is its own phrase.
So I think Yehuda's wrong.
Well, so okay, the rabbis always play around with the wording and with punctuation, and punctuation they don't always let punctuation get in the way of whatever lesson they want to teach. So did Yehuda actually teach this, or is this the editor of the Gemara trying to figure out what Yehuda's reasoning is after the fact? Okay, so we're left with two different opinions as to whether circumcision needs to only be done for the sake of a mitzvah, or can circumcision be done in general? Okay, so now it goes on. The Gemara continues discussing the issue of circumcisions performed by Gentiles. It was stated, from where is it derived with regard to circumcision performed by a Gentile that it is not valid? Right? How do we know if, so we had talked about this last time, a couple of weeks ago. If you're desperate in a community where there is no Moel around, but there happens to be a Gentile who knows how to do circumcision, you could allow that Gentile to do it as long as there's a Jew there to recite the blessings. So, and that's what's done today. And I gave the example of someone who was adopted in our community. They waited until he was 8 years old to then have him circumcised. So at that point, it's major surgery, and the urologist was not Jewish, but a Moel was in the room as well as I was in the operating room. Well, I wasn't really there because I nearly fainted in the room, but the Moel was there to recite the blessings, and so it's done, and it's kosher to do that. So it's not the ideal to do that, but if you have no other choice, then you can do this. So, but this is in the time of the Talmud already, where clearly in this tractate, it's all the relationship with non-Jews is we suspect non-Jews, and that's sometimes the putting it nicely, whereas you actually suspect non-Jews of having evil intent to Jews. So why would we, so for those who think that Gentiles have evil intent against Jews, why would you allow a Gentile to touch, to come into physical contact with a Jew that could be, he would be tempted then to harm that child. So, and if we're saying that we don't want to trust Gentiles to do this, how could we even allow, from where is it derived with regard to circumcision performed by a Gentile that it's not valid, right? So, so why are we allowing ourselves to apply this negative ruling against Gentiles? Daru Bar Papa says in the name of Rav, this is derived from a verse, as it is stated, and God said to Abraham, and as for you, you shall keep my covenant, you and your seed after you throughout their generations. And Rabbi Yochanan says that it's derived from the verse, he must be circumcised, himol yimol. According to Rabbi Yochanan, this verse teaches that a Jew must be circumcised by one who is already circumcised. So, different verses used. So that same verse about the doubling of the word in Hebrew, circumcised, Rabbi Yochanan is teaching that means, the doubling means that only a Jew can circumcise another Jew. Or there's another verse, and as for you, you shall keep my covenant, you and your seed after you throughout their generations. So you don't even need it from the verse, from the word circumcised in Hebrew being doubled, just that idea that the covenant, you have to keep doing this throughout your generations. So
Rabbi,
yes, Julian.
does that imply that you can't have a woman moil?
That's interesting. So now they're not getting to that discussion yet, but no, it is the rabbis do say clearly that women are allowed to serve as so that technically it wouldn't be a moel, but a mohelet. That's the feminine version of the word. So yes,
Okay.
it's
All right,
absolutely
good.
kosher to have a woman do circumcision. It's not, so I would say you would never find a woman doing this in the ultra-Orthodox community. That just a matter of modesty, let alone just women don't do things like that. That's just seen as something a man would do. But in the non-Orthodox world, yes, there are. There's a doctor in this area who I've worked with April Rubin, who
Yeah.
got certified to do bris. And so I've worked with her. So yes, it's absolutely kosher. So the question isn't about whether a woman can do it. The question here is whether a non-Jew can do it. So
Okay.
the Gemara asks, yeah.
I was worrying about one of my grandkids, so that's all.
Nothing to worry about. The Gemara asks, what's the practical difference between these two opinions? In other words, if Rav is saying that it's from one part of the verse in Genesis and Yochanan saying it's from another part, where they're both concluding that only Jews can do it, what's the practical difference between these two opinions? There is a practical difference between them with regard to a circumcised Arab or a circumcised hill person. So let's take a look at the notes on the side to see what that is. A circumcised Arab. A Gentile may not perform circumcision, even if he himself is circumcised. So in other words, Gentiles, Christians, usually are not circumcised, but Muslims are. So would it be okay to have a Muslim circumcise? Even the question, you could argue that the Muslim God and the Jewish God is the same God. You could make that argument. And in fact, I've told this example many times before, how in the kashrut world, those who shochet also, in some of the slaughtering houses, the shochet, besides reciting the bracha for doing shechita, in other words, fulfilling the mitzvah in a Jewish way, will also say the line in Arabic to allow this to be halal also. So technically, halal just means that someone blessed said that this slaughter is taking place in the name of Allah. You don't have to be trained to do that. You just have to have a big knife, and any Muslim can slaughter a lamb or a cow, just claiming in the name of Allah. That makes the meat then halal. So the Jewish bracha counts for that to be halal, but there are shochtim who actually do say the line in Arabic too, so reciting an Arabic prayer. And there's nothing wrong with saying the Arabic prayer because you're saying Allah, so Allah sounds like El or Elohim. It's the same word, it's just in Arabic. So the question then is about a circumcised Arab, would that be allowed? Or what's this hill person? In Hebrew, gavnuni. The origin of this word and its precise meaning are unclear. According to some commentaries, the gavnuni are the mountain-dwelling descendants of Keturah, whom the Torah obligates in the mitzvah of circumcision. Keturah was Abraham's wife after Sarah died. The end of the portion Vayera has him marrying Keturah and having children through her. So there could be this tradition, there is this tradition that the children of Keturah become these mountain people who are commanded to do circumcision because they're Abraham's children, but they haven't become part of the people of Israel. So could they then fulfill the mitzvah of circumcision for others? Although Keturah's descendants assimilated with those of Ishmael over the generations, modern day Arabs distinguish between the two. Furthermore, some of Keturah's descendants evolved into other nomadic nations, such as the Midianites. So that's just this tradition. We have no idea. Alternatively, the Gavnuni are residents of Gavel, known as the Golan, who are the descendants of nomadic tribes that perform circumcisions. All right, whatever it is, the point is, what about Gentiles who circumcise, but don't circumcise because they're commanded by God in the Torah, but they circumcise for other reasons? So there is a practical difference between them with regard to the circumcised Arab or circumcised hill person. According to the one who says that the halacha, that a Jewish infant may be circumcised only by one who has been circumcised himself, is derived from the verse, he must be circumcised, there is reason to permit an Arab or a Gavnuni to perform the circumcision as they are circumcised. And according to the one who says that circumcision may not be performed by Gentile is derived from the phrase, you shall keep my covenant, there is no reason to permit an Arab or Gibeonite to perform circumcision. So in other words, Rav and Rabbi Yochanan are disagreeing about also intent. For one, just being circumcised himself is enough of a reason to allow him to perform a circumcision on others, whereas the other one says, no, the circumcision has to be Israelite, Jewish circumcision because of God in the verse. So the question is still there in the Gemara. Do we only allow circumcision of Jewish children by Jews or not? Okay, next page. The Gemara raises an objection. And is it so, according to the one who says it's derived from the verse, he must be circumcised, that a Jew may not be circumcised by a Gentile, that there is reason to permit a circumcised Gentile to perform circumcision? So is that really the lesson that we're learning here, that a non-Jew who is circumcised is allowed to perform circumcision? But didn't we learn in a Mishnah, in another tractate called Nedarim, about vows that we take, with regard to one who vows, deriving benefit from those who are uncircumcised is konam for me. Konam is a technical term about making a vow. So if someone says deriving benefit from those who are uncircumcised is konam for me. So in other words, I'm going to stay away from deriving benefit for those who are uncircumcised. He is permitted to derive benefit from uncircumcised Jews because they are not regarded as uncircumcised. But he is prohibited from deriving benefit from the uncircumcised of the nations of the world. Apparently, even though some Gentiles are circumcised, they are nevertheless considered as those who are uncircumcised. So in that context, in discussing that particular vow, they're saying that a Gentile who is circumcised is considered as uncircumcised. So then that is an objection to the other opinion that we just read, that a Gentile who is circumcised may be allowed to perform a circumcision for a Jew. Here, it's from Nedarim, it's considered as if he isn't circumcised. Rather, there's a difference between them with regard to a Jew whose brothers died due to circumcision. And as a result, they did not circumcise him. According to the one who says that the halacha is derived from the verse, and as for you, you shall keep my covenant, there is reason to permit such a person to perform circumcision as he is a Jew. According to the one who says that the halacha is derived from the phrase, he must be circumcised, there is no reason to permit this Jew to perform circumcision as he is not circumcised himself. So the question is even regarding a Jew who is not circumcised, and the Jew who is not circumcised because of a history in the family of brothers dying during their circumcision, that there's a question whether that Jew who isn't circumcised is allowed to become a moel and to perform circumcisions. So here in the halacha on the side, a Jew whose brothers died due to circumcision, all Jews may circumcise Jewish infants, even one who is not circumcised himself due to the deaths of his older brothers as a result of circumcision. So the later halacha in the Middle Ages from Maimonides says an uncircumcised Jew is allowed to perform circumcisions. Okay. The Gemara rejects this suggestion as well. And is it so that according to the one who says that the halacha is derived from the verse, he must be circumcised, there is no reason to permit an uncircumcised Jew to perform circumcision? But didn't we learn in a Mishnah with regard to one who vows deriving benefit from those who are circumcised as konam for me, he is prohibited from deriving benefit even from uncircumcised Jews? and he is permitted to derive benefit from the circumcised of the nations of the world. Apparently, even though some Jews are not circumcised, they are nevertheless considered as those who are circumcised. Rather, there is a difference between these two opinions with regard to a woman. According to the one who says that the halacha is derived from the verse, and as for you, you shall keep my covenant, there is no reason to permit a woman to perform circumcision, as a woman is not subject to the mitzvah of circumcision, and therefore she's not included in those who must keep God's covenant. And according to the one who says that the halacha is derived from the verse, he must be circumcised, there is reason to permit a woman to perform circumcision, as a woman is considered as one who is naturally circumcised. Yes, I love those rabbis and understanding their anatomy. All right, so the issue is a woman considered part of the covenant even though she is not circumcised? So do we have to be so literal about only those who are circumcised performing circumcision, or is it enough that you're part of the covenant to be able to perform circumcision? And here is this note. There's a difference between them with regard to a woman. A woman is qualified to perform circumcision if no males are available to do so, in accordance with the opinion of Rabbi Yochanan, and that's mentioned by Maimonides. Maimonides was a Sephardi Jew. The Ramah is the Ashkenazi Jew who comments on Maimonides, not live, but in a traditional edition of Maimonides' law code. You have Maimonides in the bold print, and you have Rabbi Abraham from Provence in smaller print as an Ashkenazi, kind of commenting on Maimonides' Sephardi legal derivation. So the Ramah writes that as there is an opinion that a woman may not circumcise others, it is appropriate to seek out a man to perform this mitzvah. So he's saying this again in the 1100s, Sephardi Rambam saying it's fine to have a woman do it, and the Ashkenazi Ramah saying it's preferred to. He didn't say it's forbidden, but he said it's preferred to have a man do it. Okay. Here we go. So rather, there's a difference between these two opinions with regard to a woman. According to the one who says that the halacha is derived from the verse, and as for you, you shall keep my covenant, there is no reason to permit a woman to perform circumcision, as a woman is not subject to the mitzvah of circumcision. We finished this paragraph, sorry. The Gemara raises a difficulty against this explanation. And is there anyone who says that a woman may not perform a circumcision? But isn't it written, then Sipporah took a flint and cut off the foreskin of her son? There's this bizarre episode when Moses reunites with his wife Sipporah after leaving Mount Sinai and heading back to Egypt to begin the mission of bringing the people out of Egypt. There's this bizarre episode in which Sipporah circumcises their sons. Okay? I can't say anything more about it because it's bizarre, but you can look it up in the Eitz Chaim, Exodus chapter 4. So it's the near the end of the first portion in Exodus, Shemot, and you can look there and see the commentary and see how cryptic it is. This verse explicitly states that a circumcision was performed by a woman, not just a woman. She was a Midianite woman too, by the way. She wasn't Jewish. No. This is Sipporah, Moses' wife.
Right.
So are they?
The Midianites
Maybe.
It's interesting.
Okay. Yes. So the Gemara answers that one should read into the verse, and she caused to be taken. That is, she did not take a flint herself. But isn't it written, and she cut off? Read into the verse, and she caused to be cut off, as she told another person to take a flint and cut off her son's foreskin, and he did so. The Gemara provides an alternative explanation. And if you wish, say instead, she came and began the act, and Moses came and completed the circumcision. So again, for those who think that a woman shouldn't do it, you have to re-vocalize the words in the verse to say that she didn't actually do it, but at the most, she started and Moses finished. Okay, so now on to a new Mishnah. The Mishnah discusses the issue of accepting certain professional services from a Gentile. One may be treated by Gentiles, provided that it is monetary treatment, but not personal treatment. And one may not have his hair cut by them anywhere due to the danger that the Gentile will kill him with the razor. This is the statement of Rabbi Meir. And the rabbis say in a public thoroughfare, it is permitted to have one's hair cut by a Gentile, but not when the Jew and Gentile are alone together. In other words, Meir is, and I think we saw this in the previous Mishnah as well, he is very suspect of Gentiles. And the rabbis say, we are suspect, but we know that in public, there's no way that a Gentile would kill a Jew in public. Maybe in private, so don't be alone with a barber who's working out of his house, but you can be alone with a barber who is working in the marketplace. Because then even though he has a razor, sharp razor in his hand, he's not going to do anything to hurt you in public. Okay, so that's the Mishnah. Gemara, what is a monetary treatment? So one may be treated by Gentiles, provided that it is monetary treatment, but not personal treatment. So what is monetary treatment and what is personal treatment? If we say that monetary treatment is medical attention provided in exchange for payment, whereas personal treatment is medical attention provided for free, then let the Mishnah teach one may be treated by Gentiles in exchange for payment, but not for free. The Gemara suggests another explanation. Rather, monetary treatment is referring to medical treatment for a matter that poses no life-threatening danger, whereas personal treatment is referring to treatment for a matter that does not pose life-threatening danger. The Gemara rejects this suggestion as well, but doesn't Rav Yehuda say, even with regard to the wound of a bloodletting incision, we are not permitted to be treated by Gentiles? The wound left after bloodletting certainly does not pose life-threatening danger, and yet a Jew is prohibited for having it treated by a Gentile. You know, so it's just thinking about bloodletting. This isn't leeches. This is actually cutting into your arm to allow you to bleed. And in ancient times to the Middle Ages, it was thought that if you weren't feeling well, or if you had even like you're depressed or something like that, bleeding it out would be considered as a normal course of action to kind of revive you. Let the bad spirits that are in you come out through this bloodletting, and then you recover from that, and you should be fully recovered. So the wound maybe from the bloodletting isn't getting better so quickly. Who do you have treat you for recovering from a bloodletting? Can you allow a Gentile to put a Band-Aid on or to stitch you up? Rather, monetary treatment is referring to medical treatment provided for one's animal, whereas personal treatment is referring to treatment provided for his own body. And this is in accordance with that which Rav Yehuda says, even with regard to the wound of a bloodletting incision, we are not permitted to be treated by them. Rav Chisda says that Mar Ukva says, but if a Gentile said to him, such and such a potion is beneficial for this ailment, or such and such a potion is harmful for this ailment, it is permitted to adhere to the Gentile's advice. So the Gentile isn't touching you. The Gentile is giving you advice. Are you allowed to accept the advice when it's not physical touching? So Chisda says in the name of Mar Ukva that yes, you can take advice from a Gentile. The Gemara explains the rationale for this leniency. The Gentile thinks to himself that the Jew is asking him for his opinion, and just as he is asking him, he will also ask other people. And the Gentile further reasons that if the Jew understands that the Gentile provided him with bad advice, that man, the Gentile, that is the Gentile, will bring harm to himself by damaging his own reputation. It's therefore assumed that the Gentile will provide good advice in order to avoid sullying his reputation. Just want to see if there are any notes on the previous page. No. We're coming to a red S. I was going to say that I wanted to end at 10:15 today because I have someplace else to get to. I think we'll stop here for today now at this point, at this red S, before getting into another topic. So this broad topic that we had begun a few pages ago about whether it's permitted to do any kind of business with Gentiles is being discussed here. So here we're leaving off about advice versus actually having a Gentile perform service on your body. And we'll continue the discussion next time. So
Jonah, could you
yes.
just read the note that, too late?
No, it's not too late.
That is asked.
Right.
So there was an N by.
Right. Yes. Right. Right. A Jew is asking. Yes. So the Jew is asking. The Gentile assumes that the Jew is not asking him to provide a cure, but is only inquiring about the nature of his affliction and its remedy. Additionally, he assumes that the patient will also ask others for their opinions. Consequently, the Gentile will not risk damaging his reputation by offering bad advice.
That's what it said over there.
Right. So it's essentially that usually the non-bolded English, which is Steinsaltz's explanation of the bold, is taken directly from Rashi. Okay. Any other questions or comments? Okay. So I wish everybody a good rest of the day. We're on for next Sunday, and see you all then. Take care.
Okay. Okay. Have a good day. Thank you.